Hey, everybody. Thank you for checking out this episode of Raised on the Radio. I am one half of this show. I am Colt Brocado, my good friend Patrick Blair in Zoomland, as usual. As you can see, I'm back, and anybody who's been following us, I guess since I moved into this house, this is where I originally started. It didn't look as cool as it does now. I like the sound in here better. I like the vibe in here better. And I think having this backdrop right behind me instead of like a good ways behind me looks better too. What do you think?
Look, now I know that we have super fans, but I will give someone $100 if they can tell us the exact date that he moved out of that room into that house and how long it's been since he's been back in that room. So,
Yeah.
super fans, if you want $100, leave in the comments somewhere, DM us, tell me how long it's been.
Yeah. You understand for $100, people will just go back and listen just so they can.
Proves they're a super fan.
That's true.
That's
I'll
effort.
give you that.
I like the dedication, so I'll take it.
I'll give you that.
Kobe behind you.
Yes, sir.
Still rocking the Kobe.
Absolutely. I have to.
You know what's? I was just I was just watching, or it came up in my feed. You remember when Ari Shaffir said all that shit about Kobe?
I do.
And you remember how like some people were like defending him, and some people were kind of joking about it, and then some people were like not defending him at all. They're like, yeah. You know what's strange? And I was just thinking about this today because another video came from so he had comedians, the community of comedians defend him. And I think like a large majority of the people who were speaking out against him weren't necessarily comedians as much as they were a part of the culture, if you will. Not the comedic stand-up comedian culture, but the culture outside of that, meaning like urban culture, so on and so forth. So like when Shane Gillis got canceled from SNL, okay, or when he got fired from SNL and then got canceled, and I'm using air quotes. And I think even at this point, he uses air quotes when he talks about this. But when he got fired, there were a lot of comedians who didn't speak out on his behalf because he said a word that, okay, fine, we're not supposed to say it. But again, in the context in which he did it, okay, I understand why people are upset because the word just gives them a feeling, right?
Right.
But he should be able to say it. Well, really, freedom of speech says he can say it in any context. But in the context that he was saying it, he should have been able to say it. And there should have been every stand-up comedian on his side being, yeah, it's fine. We're on your side, dude. You're in the middle of a podcast. You were in the middle of a comedic sort of like back and forth with your co-host. You were playing the part of a slumlord in New York who rents to Asian people. So like, and I don't need to say the word, you know what I'm saying, right? Hopefully everyone listening knows what I'm saying. Anyway, so like not many people, there were a few, but there are a lot of people who threw that dude under the bus. And did you see that he's now the host of The Daily Show?
Oh, really?
He is taking Trevor Noah's spot.
That's crazy.
It's crazy because, and I was telling this to my wife the other night, and that's not totally my point. So don't let me forget where I was going. You know how I like to do. But so like, but I was telling my wife the other night, we were laying in bed, and I guess it was maybe Trevor Noah's last show. And I don't like that guy. I don't think he's funny.
Yeah.
But it came on. We probably had Comedy Central on because The Office is on a loop, and I'd fall asleep to The Office. So like, but I didn't fall asleep this time, and that show came on. We were both awake. And I said, oh, you know who's replacing him is that one guy. And I started explaining. She's like, oh, wow, that's cool. Good for him. And then I started explaining the whole cancellation thing. And, you know, again, people kind of coming to his aid, but then not. But I find it interesting that he's going to be the host of that show because he doesn't lean a certain way.
Yeah.
Now, I think his audience leans a certain way, kind of.
Yeah.
But I don't think he does. He's very much in the middle, and but also he's never really serious about his politics. It's very much like there's never a point where he like goes on a rant and it's not meant to be comedic. Whereas you have a guy like, say, Dave Smith, for instance, who I'll be honest with you, I don't know if he's a stand-up comedian anymore. Are you a comedian anymore? Because it seems to me like you want to run for office, which is cool. Do your thing. But like Shane Gillis is, you know, he tends to talk about political things sometimes, but when he does, the intent is always to be funny. It's never about swaying the opinion in a certain way or whatever. So I find it very interesting that he's going to be the person to take over that show, because if you think about who's hosted that show, very much leaning to the left.
Yeah. So I wonder, when you think about hosts that have been doing that job for so long, one after the other, in today's culture, I wonder if maybe the Daily Show is looking for a different route to go. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to lean towards the middle
Yeah. I mean,
instead of just the left,
yeah, well, I think they should. I think everyone should,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. We'd all get along a little bit
I
better.
mean, yeah, for
And
sure.
we wouldn't have to worry about cancel culture. We wouldn't have to worry about being woke because we would all go, oh, wait, you see it this way. I see it that way. There's a middle ground that we haven't yet discussed
Right.
or walked on yet. But I don't know. That's interesting that you say that because I doubt it. I doubt that's what they want. And my biggest fear is that they're going to, well, he's going to have writers. It's going to be like every other talk show. It's going to be like every other late night show.
Your fear is they're going to try to push him to the left and it's not going to work out.
I just think they're not going to let him be him. And then, yes, it's not going to work out.
But, it's got to be kind of what you sign up for too, right? I mean,
he's got to take that gig. That's a huge gig.
Right.
Like
but he's got to know, hey, this is how this show has been for how long now. Like they're gonna push me in this direction. They have to, just like the whole Joe Rogan and Spotify thing. He knew what he was getting into when he signed on with Spotify. But hey, look at the money.
I think for the most part, though, I think in the beginning they pulled some episodes, but I think since then he's pretty much had free reign to do what he wants.
And when was the last time you heard anything about him, like in that whole situation? I mean, everything. I mean, right? It just completely went away. We went from, I mean, how many months ago was that? Maybe.
Were you talking about him like being in the news about the whole vaccine thing and all that shit?
Well, yeah, that too, but also the whole like him using the N-word back in the day and all that stuff where people were jumping on the bandwagon on him on that.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Like all that was all at once kind of, and then he he kind of got ahead of it, and then now we're not even talking about it anymore.
Yeah, I think he's a very special kind of case though, because he had the support of the Spotify CEO and all that bullshit. Much like Chappelle had the support of Netflix when he was catching all that shit. So,
right.
With Shane Gillis, I don't know. I mean, he's going to have writers. I don't know if they're necessarily going to try to push him left. I just think they're going to have a specific way of doing things like they always have. Right. And he went on the Flagrant 2 podcast this week. And he didn't really talk much about like his agenda. He was just kind of like happy to be doing it. It's going to be cool. I'm excited to like see what happens. And which I'm sure it's so new. And I don't think Trevor Noah had done his last show yet. So you kind of tread lightly as far as how you speak about it, but like very interesting. So my whole point. So anyway, he's new host of the Daily Show, which is huge. Thinking about where he was
is he
3 years ago.
Is he the other guy that does that other podcast with Rogan? Him and Ari, the Forest.
Him and Ari Shaffir and Mark Norman. Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought. All right.
Protect our parks. They just get shit-faced and stoned. And
yeah,
by the end of it, one of them pukes. It's just.
So do you think he stops doing that when he's doing the Daily Show? That's kind of an odd look also, right?
I don't know.
You go from the Daily Show, and no matter what your agenda is or what your politics are or how you come across, if you go back on Rogan and you do that show and just be yourself, like that seems like controversy could hit hard really fast.
Well, I definitely don't think he's going to be getting shit-faced on the internet as freely as he does now. No.
Yeah. But also, it hasn't been that long since he did. So I could also see how people could jump on that.
Well, I'm sure he's been vetted by Comedy Central and Viacom, which is who owns Comedy Central. Which again, so like to what you said, it's not about the Daily Show. It's about who owns Comedy Central. This is a very woke, left-leaning company anyway.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. But so again, my first point was not many people took his side. Like not many comedians publicly came out on his behalf or in his defense, which I thought was kind of fucked up. But now, have you seen what's going on with Brendan Schaub and Joe Rogan?
No. Did I miss it?
I think so. So when UFC 279 happened, Brendan Schaub had this whole conspiracy theory about how the UFC told Khamzat to miss weight so they could shift around the card because the pay-per-view was trending poorly and they weren't going to sell as many pay-per-views.
So
So
now
the
that was
UFC,
that was also part of the back and forth between him and Dana too, right? Because
correct,
Dana basically said you're an idiot if you think that we would actually do something like that.
correct. So when that went down, Dana said that, and Dana didn't even call him an idiot. Dana was talking about someone else. He thought Pat Miletich said all that, which Pat Miletich ended up, he did say it, but someone at the press conference Dana was at was like, no, it was Brendan Schaub. And he goes, oh, well, that makes sense. That's all he said. And it got a response out of the room. And so Brendan Schaub responded with this Instagram post calling him like a budget version of Vince McMahon. And,
Yeah, I
he's got
did
a
see
poor
that too. Yeah.
vocabulary. So like that whole back and forth happens. And then Joe Rogan does a podcast with Will Harris. And he basically says Brendan Schaub needs a handler. Right.
Rogan said that, or
Said that about Schaub. Yeah. Basically,
okay.
he's like, he needs someone like me to be like, no, don't say that. Don't do that. And Schaub responded yesterday or 2 days ago. He didn't dig too deep into the fact that Rogan was the one that said it and that it was directed at him, but he was just like, if anyone needs handlers, it's Dana White and Mark Zuckerberg and this whole thing. So my whole point of bringing that up is Brendan Schaub for the last year has been a highly attacked person on the internet. I mean, my feed is nothing but Brendan Schaub spoof videos, like hip parody video. I mean, and so as I watched this unfold, not many comedians have come out in his defense on anything. I think the biggest thing that happened was he accused Bobby Lee and the rest of his podcast of this whole Reddit conspiracy to, terror Brendan down, where like they were for 6 years were terrorizing him on Reddit. And it's come out recently that perhaps there might have been some truth to that, but I'm not even going to get into that. But so like that happened. And like many people were like, dude, you're an idiot. Like no one. So like my point of this is like, he's done all of these things and he does put his own foot in his own mouth. He says dumb things. I understand. But you would think, especially in LA, where all these guys seem to be this like tight community of just, all in their feelings type of guys, really the only person I've seen come to his defense on anything is Bert Kreischer. And you know how I feel about Bert.
Yeah. I wonder if he's not really like in the in crowd as far as comedians go in LA. Or
that's interesting you say that
wherever.
now.
And also if we go back to many episodes ago when we were talking about like the whole Brian Callen thing going on, and you said multiple times you don't think that Brian Callen and Brendan Schaub really even got along very well. And if that is true, I could see that, you would think Brian Callen would at least come to his defense, but also maybe because of all the stuff that he got backlash for, maybe he can't really.
Why does that matter?
Just because if he comes out and he tries to take the side of Brendan Schaub, people are just going to start attacking everything that Brian Callen just went through not too long ago. Not that it even should tie together, but they would. And it would just put his face back out there when that stuff should be over with by now. And he would be just looking to be attacked again. But, you're talking about comedians not coming to other comedians' side when this stuff happens.
As comedians, not as people.
Yeah.
As comedians. So when it comes to being able to say what you want in the context of trying to be funny, or when it comes to being able to say what you want in the context of trying to be shocking or controversial, everyone within that occupation should really be on everyone's side when it comes to that. They shouldn't want anyone to be silenced. They shouldn't want anyone to be thrown under the microscope in a way to where it kind of limits what that person can do professionally. And I'm not saying that's what anyone's doing with Brendan Schaub. The hate is the hate. I mean, I'll be honest with you, he does it to himself. He does it to himself.
At this point, do you think he's doing a lot of it on purpose?
But he should. And I don't think he does. I think he's very much a sensitive guy. And I don't know that he can handle all of the backlash and all of the criticism. And
So maybe he
You
just
know,
is who he is, and he's leaning into that, and that is
he
what
should lean into the fact that, yeah, I'm a big dumb oaf. I might have brain damage, but I'm still trying to be funny. And I
Yeah,
think people would leave him alone, but he doesn't know how to do that. And the saddest part is he's got a meal ticket, being friends with who he's friends with. And
yeah,
I think up to this point, it's worked for him. Okay. But as it started work, and you can see this, like, and unfortunately, like, I'm so dialed into not only those shows, but also the shows that talk about it, talk about him specifically. And I'm not going to call them haters anymore. I think at this point, and I never really did necessarily, but like, they're analyzing the content, man. We all do it. Like I said, we all do it. That's what the internet is. That's what podcasting is. No one is above it. Rogan does it.
yeah.
Tom Segura does it. Mark Maron does it. Everyone analyzes what's going on around them. It's just the way it works. So like, I'm so tapped into all of that. And what you really saw was a change in his attitude where he was like, I'm just the new guy. I don't deserve any of this too. I'm very arrogant. I deserve this. I deserve that. I'm going to flex on this. I'm going to flex on that. And it's just, at the end of the day, it's just kind of cringe. And it's just like, but dude, just lean into the fact that, if people call you stupid, or people call you unfunny, or people call you gay because you wear jeans too tight, lean into it. Don't be butthurt by it.
Right.
It's
But
hard to do, but
and he's, I don't know. I guess he's like really sensitive with a major ego. Like
which is the worst kind.
yeah, everything that he's done in, from college football to MMA to everything almost requires that kind of an ego. And
Does it though?
I mean, for a lot of people, I'm sure it does.
Does it for funny guys?
Yeah, but he wasn't a funny guy until.
But I thought this was his lifelong dream. I thought it's what he wanted to do since he was a little boy. He wanted to be a comedian.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I think Rogan told him enough times that he thinks he's funny enough that he should get on stage, and then he did it and he enjoyed it. And now he is where he is from that. That's my guess. But anyway, so when we were talking about comedians coming to other comedians' aids over stuff, I was thinking about like the whole Chris Rock's the slap.
Yeah.
How many did you see very many comedians come out and talk about that? I mean, this is the other side of the spectrum of comedy. Like this is, you know what I'm saying? Like it's the other side. Like if you were to split, like for me, like if I were to split comedy down the middle, I would have like Chris Rock and David Spade and Rob Schneider and those guys on one side, and then you have your Rogan and your Schaub and Callan.
Explain that.
I don't know, like if
Those first three you said, why would you put them on one side together?
I don't know. I guess maybe just the crew or the clique that normally would hang out together. I guess. I guess that's why I'm doing that. And then the other side, like I said, would be Rogan and Callan and D'Elia and Schaub and all those guys. But even like, David Spade is really good friends with Chris Rock. And I've been listening to the Fly on the Wall podcast. Have you ever listened to that?
What's that?
It's David Spade and Dana Carvey. And they have a lot of people on the show that were on SNL, and they talk like really good guests. I enjoy the show. But anyways, I was listening to an episode the other day that was put out right after the slap happened. And David Spade did a little thing at the beginning of it, but it was like a minute long. And that's, I think, all he said about that whole thing happening.
Well, I think that's all he should say. I don't know if comedians should spend that much time on that. And here's why. Will Smith is a giant star. Will Smith is not a hater or a troll or someone with an opinion on the internet. So there's a huge difference. So like what I mean by that is Will Smith is going to he's going to get away with a lot. So I understand that when that happened, a lot of comedians and a lot of performers were like, hey, this is a very bad time where people can just run on stage and smack you for something they don't like that you said or did. Or I don't think that's what happened. And you and I have already talked about this. I don't think that's what happened. I think it was a long boiling thing that finally spilled over. I don't think it was spontaneous by any means on Will Smith's part. And I think that it was something that was just bound to happen eventually. If the moment presented it, or if the opportunity was there. Yeah, I don't know if you should spend more time on that.
Okay. Yeah, I get it.
What I do think comedians should spend more time on is a guy like Shane Gillis getting fired from a major show like Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
For something that he said on a throwaway podcast 2 years before he ever got hired to the show, and it was taken out of context. And that's the other thing. Like, the people that were reporting it never spoke of the context. And I said this the whole time with the Rogan thing, with the N-word. Like, you and I have listened to Rogan long enough to know that when he says that word, he's never saying it maliciously or directed at another person. It's always in the context of conversation, meaning someone said it, or in this period of time it was said, but it's never him saying it directed at anyone.
Right.
Now, I understand that in 2022, even that doesn't matter to most people. And we both said that on the podcast when we talked about it. Fine. But no one discussed the context because they were afraid to. Now,
well, yeah,
stand-up
because
comedians,
it makes their argument not legitimate anymore.
well, stand-up comedians should be able to not stand-up comedians. I'm sorry, performers, artists, people who put themselves out there for other people to criticize should be able to speak on behalf of other artists and say, no, it was okay, because it was all a part of the art. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But no one's doing that for Brendan Schaub ever. It's just, he's a big dummy. He should just shut up. I mean, one of his closest friends said he should just shut up.
Yeah.
Now, look, is this theory about UFC 279 dumb? No, it's not dumb. It's not dumb. Is it irrational? Maybe. Should it have been said out loud as seriously and defensively as he did? Probably not.
However, his feud with Dana White keeps him in the spotlight with the MMA community.
Well, not only that, I mean, Dana White, honestly, Dana White's TMZ material, dude. When Dana White is in the news, Dana White is in all of the news. It's not just MMA news. It's not just sports news. I mean, Dana White is bigger than sports in a sense.
So
Dana White is not Roger Goodell. Dana White is not Rob Manfred. Like, he's big time.
So, okay. But is it because he has the ego as well?
Yes.
Why he can't just not say anything about Brendan Schaub?
Well, dude, look, I'll put it to you this way. If I were a former aerobics instructor making $22,000 a year, and now I was worth $1 billion, I'd have an ego too. Most people would.
Yeah. And I'm not saying he shouldn't. I'm just saying that I'm wondering why, like, this beef with Schaub does nothing for him.
Well, he's done with it. Schaub's the one that keeps bringing it up.
Yeah.
Dana White's never going to respond to that. He's only going to respond if asked in the appropriate setting, such as a UFC press conference like that.
But he knows how to maneuver in those press junkets. He could also just say, I don't have anything to say about Brendan Schaub, and then move on to the next question.
I want you to back up. I want you to say press junket again.
Why do you not like that?
Do it again.
Do you not like the term press junket?
Do it again. Do it again.
Why?
Just do it again for me. For me, please. For me, please.
You want me to say the word?
I swear this is not a bad thing.
Press junket. What? Why are you clapping?
I appreciate you. I appreciate you for knowing that word and using it correctly. Go on. I was just trying to give you a compliment. That's all.
I had to really fight for it.
Because you wouldn't just say it again.
I didn't know what you wanted from me. But anyways,
you always think I'm so malicious.
There's no reason why he couldn't, if he's asked a question about Brendan Schaub has nothing to do with the UFC anymore. So he should easily, just because of the podcast and
I mean, he has an MMA show. He does, but he doesn't. I mean, look,
but not technically.
he's not a major
connected
figurehead.
and
He's
not
not Dominic
connected to the
Cruz.
UFC.
He's not Paul Felder. He's not Michael Bisping. He's none of those guys. He's not even the schmo, which should be an insult to Brendan. He should really step up his game. But I just find it interesting. That's all. That you think about like, well, why is no one coming to this guy's defense at all? It's probably because of the ego, the attitude, and just the overall lack of self-awareness when it comes to like, hey man, you do all this to yourself.
Yeah.
And this is what people on the internet look for. So
Kind of like, go ahead.
What? No, go.
I was gonna shift the conversation and say kind of like Kanye at the moment, but if you have any more on that topic, let's go ahead and finish that up.
Kanye? Kanyezel? I don't have anything more on Brandon Shaw.
Yee.
Do
Do you see anybody coming to Kanye's defense right now?
Well, he's going on Tucker Carlson tonight.
Yeah.
Probably like in an hour or so.
Okay.
I'm sure he'll be on his side because God knows that bow tie wearing fuck thinks white lives matter. But let me ask you this. If you were on the street, if you had a show or at a restaurant or bar and you saw anyone, forget about the color of their skin. If you saw anyone wearing a shirt that said white lives matter, what would your reaction be?
Distasteful? I guess it would be the first thing that would cross my mind. I don't.
Can I tell you what mine would be?
I don't know. Are you asking me like, do I find it insulting?
It can't be insulting.
Right. So that's why I was curious.
Not to you.
Yeah.
It can be insulting, but not to you and I.
So, okay. So a black person wearing a White Lives Matter shirt or a white person wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt, can you compare the two or not?
Say it again.
A black person wearing a White Lives Matter shirt
Okay.
or a white person wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt. Can you compare the two, or are they two completely different things?
Two completely different things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give me your reason why.
Well, for one, the folks who are wearing that shirt were a part of a fashion show. So I don't think they wanted to say no to anything. And I felt like they were cornered into wearing that bullshit.
Okay.
So, and you said a white person wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt?
Yes. Is that different than a black person wearing a White Lives Matter shirt?
Yeah, 1000%. Yeah.
Okay. So what
because
do you
the idea of one means a hell of a lot more than the other.
That's true. But I mean, what do you think Kanye's thought process is on this?
Nothing. Kanye loves Kanye. That's what the thought process was. And that's my whole point of this.
But that doesn't really make sense though. Why?
Yeah,
why?
it does. Okay.
Why does Kanye loving Kanye? What's that got to do with him wearing a White Lives Matter shirt?
Because it causes controversy and it's a gimmick. His
But
entire
should it cause controversy? I don't know.
No, but unfortunately we are where we are.
Okay. All right.
That's
in other words, this is actually a smart move on his part.
He knows what he's doing.
He knows how to market. He knows the marketing game. Yeah.
It's a very calculated thing that he's done.
Mm-hmm.
His entire career has been based on gimmicks and or controversy. So like when I have somebody talk to me about hip hop and they go, yeah, Kanye's one of the GOATs. And I'm just like, I'm not for me, because he's had to use gimmicks and or controversy to get ahead of the game. It's never been about, and I understand Jay-Z talks about, oh, I can't believe you're such a dope rapper, this and that. But look, when it comes to his career and being who he is in music, he's always had to use gimmicks, and he's had to use controversy, and he's had to use the overall, shock factor based on some dumb thing that he did. And it's not shock factor in the same way that Marilyn Manson was shocking, or that 9 Inch Nails was shocking, or I can go on and on. So like, this should be no different. And it's not to me. It's not different to me. I mean, this is what he does. My biggest thing is like the problem that I have with it is it further divides us as people, because now you have the Black Lives Matter movement speaking out against this idea. And then you have the white people going, why is it such a big deal? Don't white lives matter?
Right.
Yeah. More division.
And also
more bullshit.
And also the reason why the Black Lives Matter movement started. I mean, wasn't very long ago.
It wasn't, and we don't need to get into this. And I've said this a couple of times on this show, but like, I'm not a fan of the organization. I'm a fan of the idea and the
Right.
movement.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a fan of the people who started the organization. I'm not a fan of what they've done with the organization. I won't get into it, but I'm a fan of well, not a fan. I support the idea and the movement because duh. And I don't know how much I don't know how I don't know if I can be any clearer on that. Duh. Of course they do. Of course Black Lives Matter. I'm not going to say of course white lives matter. You know why? Because I'm white. And it's been made very clear to me for all the years of my life that I matter. I've been very privileged and I've had just had the red carpet rolled out for me, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be funny either. I know this is an old joke that many comedians have told, and I'm really not trying to be funny. I'm being real. Like,
Right. I get it.
I have not experienced, and you know, growing up where I grew up and having friends of all races and backgrounds and whatever the fucking you want to say, I've been around those people and I've seen them experience it. I've seen them live it. I haven't had to live it in the same way. And I've been right there, been right beside them, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So, no, I don't support white lives matter. It's dumb. It's, but I'll put it to you this way too. An educated person would look at the whole idea of any specific group matters and go, well, of course. Now let's think of something else. What else can we say? What other progressive type movement, what forward thinking idea do we have now? Now that we have acknowledged that you matter, I matter, they matter, he matters, she matters, we all matter. Now what do we do? Because keeping it to one or two or three or four individual groups working for themselves, we don't go anywhere. We don't do anything.
Right.
Which is why it's like, look at this situation for what it is. It's Kanye being and loving Kanye. That's all it is.
Yeah, but
It's not a statement of anything.
see, in you saying that makes sense to me because maybe it's not a statement of anything. It's literally, and you said this a while ago too about the shock factor. It's literally the shock factor of seeing the words "White Lives Matter" on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Like it's just the shock factor that makes sense. Maybe there's literally nothing to it. He just wanted, it just puts him in the news. But something I thought was interesting. So I guess he had a deal with Gap and he had a deal with Adidas, and I think Adidas has said that his connection with them is under review right now or something like that. Is Adidas who makes Yeezys, or is that his own thing?
No, that's it. Those are Adidas. Yeah.
They are Adidas. How much do those cost?
Way too much money because they're dog shit sneakers.
Right. But he made a comment about his connection with Gap and said that they have like $200 shirts and he wants nothing to do with their $200 shirts. I'm like, dude, you have Yeezys.
But he put out
way too much for.
He has his own line at Gap, I thought.
Okay, I don't know. That's just what I read in an article. So
hold on. I swear he has his own clothing line at Gap. Oh yeah, they ended their partnership. Okay.
Yeah.
That was 3 weeks ago. Boo-hoo. The fuck shops at Gap? Who still shops at Gap?
I don't know. I don't
even know where a Gap is. Like, I don't know if the mall that I have has a Gap.
I don't know if it does either.
I wouldn't even know.
Maybe Kanye was keeping Gap alive.
He didn't do a very good job. So to conclude this, when I saw that story, I immediately went, well, look who we're talking about. Look who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Again, his entire career has been fueled by gimmicks and controversy and being in the news and being, to his credit, he admits it, a douchebag. That's it. So, and he got what he wanted out of it. Like I said, how you have these Black Lives Matter leaders speaking out against it and kind of like rallying the troops, if you will, to, educate him on the whole idea. And it's like, he doesn't need And I know he had the whole thing where he said like slavery wasn't real. Again, something he said to be controversial. He doesn't believe these things.
Yeah.
He doesn't. Which is
Still,
why I've never liked the guy. I've
still
never
think
bought
he's
into his bullshit.
I still think he's a little out of his mind though.
1000%. Yeah.
I
He's
think
mentally ill.
his split with Kim like really
He was
did a number.
on a
Not that he was on a
he was on a
trajectory.
path. He was on a path to Candyland long before that, dude. Trust me. He's mentally ill.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to be insulting. Like it's
Yeah.
out of concern. Like someone grab your dude and get him some help. He's mentally ill.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. I can't wait to see this Tucker interview. And I've never said that about anything ever, other than
You
when
probably never will again.
no, the one time I did it was when Jon Stewart was on
Oh.
way back in the day. And he called him a dick. Other than that, never. I don't like the fucking. No reason to watch the guy, but I'll be curious to see what this moron goes on there and says. And he is a moron. That's what other people need. Like people need to understand that as well. He's a moron. He's not an intelligent guy. Yeah, he's smart at the marketing. He knows what he's doing. He's not an articulate guy. He's not a smart guy.
He's also probably got a marketing team around him that's.
He's a dummy who has people telling him what to do.
Yeah.
When you're worth that kind of money, you have people influencing your decision-making process and leaning you in the direction that will eventually lead to more money, which is what this does.
So I know you say you've never liked his music or anything like that, or really ever been a fan because of the gimmicks and stuff like that. Did you like the first album that he was that College Dropout, I think was the first album that he put out?
No.
I'm just curious if you liked that. And the reason why I say is because that's before he started making a name for himself with gimmicks and things like that.
I mean, you could argue that, sure. But I think his gimmick back then was like sort of nerdy backpack. I don't have to be street. I don't have to talk about this. I don't have to talk about that. That's very basic, but that's the way he was.
Well, didn't that record come out like after he had a really bad car wreck that he almost died in?
I want to say the car wreck was after the record was out.
No,
you might be right.
I don't think so because it had that song "Through the Wire."
Yeah, you're
on
right.
it,
You're right. You're right.
talking
You're right.
about that.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yep.
Now,
But I thought he had a record before that.
That's
And
what I
again,
was gonna say. Maybe he did.
This shows you that I'm not a fan because I honestly have no fucking idea. Honestly. Ahmaud Arbery's mother says Kanye West's White Lives Matter shirt helps to legitimize extremist behavior.
So there's that.
Arbery, 25, was killed in February 2020 when he went for a jog in Georgia and was chased down by 3 white neighbors and shot. Arbery's family said the shirt was especially offensive because he privately supported the family after Arbery's murder in the racially motivated attack. This mockery of the Black Lives Matter movement and his now denunciation of the movement as some sort of hoax flies directly in the face of what he said, the family stated. It's confusing for her. It's confusing for the families to receive his support privately, but publicly set us all back. I mean, I can't argue that necessarily. So
Right.
what were we talking about before I read that? We were talking about something else. Shit.
College, if that record.
Oh yeah, I was looking that up. Sorry.
One that he put up or not.
My brain is just mashed potatoes at this point. Let me see. College Dropout, 2004. Late registration, 2005. Graduation, 2007. 808s and Heartbreak. So I would say that isn't 808s and Heartbreak really the one that just blew him up? Just like it's over. He's the dude now, right?
I'm not sure. I don't even know what was on that.
I'll tell you. Heartless.
Oh, okay.
Amazing. Heartless, amazing.
Well, let's stay in the vein of music, and it's a topic that we've been talking about for several weeks, talking about backing tracks for bands and things like that. So let's talk about the story with Ronnie Radke and this Trunk guy. Trunk, right? That was his last name.
Eddie Trunk. You don't know who that is?
Eddie Trunk. No, I the name sounds familiar, but so he's a radio personality.
Yeah, I mean, he's been, one of the bigger over the last, honestly, fucking 2 decades. He's been one of the bigger faces of heavy metal and hard rock, just being like he's a historian of the genre. And, he had a show on VH1 with, it was him and Jim Florentine, and I can't remember the other guy's name. It was pretty popular. And so, yeah, I mean, he's a guy who has been very much in the, I mean, well, you're right. He's a radio personality, but I think his claim to fame was really being a music historian and really knowing about, honestly, like everything, metal and hard rock, obscure shit, popular shit, everything. He's known about it. So anyway, you were saying.
So, I mean, the story is basically about him calling out Ronnie Radke for them canceling a show because they had their laptops stolen, which meant they didn't have their backing tracks. And he was basically calling them out and saying that bands are so reliant on tracks now that they actually have to cancel a show because they don't have their laptops.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there are two things to consider here. The first thing is that I think it's hilarious that they canceled their show. And I'm not being a hater. I just think it's hilarious.
You're kind of
if it were me,
you don't like Radke anyways.
No, he's won me over a little bit recently. And that band has some good songs. So I'm not. I swear. I just think it's funny because that guy, if anybody, will stand behind that decision, and he won't take shit from anyone. Whereas I feel there are a lot of bands who would have made that decision and then regretted it. I don't think he's ever gonna. He doesn't care. He has no shame.
I mean,
so
it doesn't necessarily change anything. Like for them, I don't think they lose fans. Because of it.
No.
And I think for him to just come out and say, listen, this is like we're not the only band that does this. Like a lot of bands rely a lot on tracks.
Right.
And this isn't a new thing. So the fact that you're downing us for this is ridiculous.
Well, what you're seeing here, and this is really the main point, it being funny is just funny to me. Because I think it takes balls to be like, yeah, we can't play. We don't have our laptops. It sounds funny to me.
I mean, it's kind of crazy, right? Though, like to cancel an entire show.
I mean, I think it's crazier to not have like a backup plan.
Yeah. I mean, unless
for me, that's really where
because does that show that the band can't do it? I mean, it shows you that they can't do it, or is it just because of the set list that they were going to do relies so much on it? That's why they had to cancel the show. I wonder, because you would think they would still be able to pull out a performance.
Oh, they could still play, but I think you would see and hear a lot of flaws because they're so much in repetition with what they had rehearsed based on what they had.
Right.
So the main point of this is what we're seeing here is a generational thing. We're seeing a guy who didn't come from that era, not understanding the new era. Is he qualified to speak out on it? Maybe. Now, I don't know Eddie Trunk to have ever been in a band or create any type of music. So I always say to those folks, like, maybe shut the fuck up. But he has a very solid reputation in the hard rock community and amongst those folks. But he comes from a different time. He's 58 years old. He doesn't understand what type of show or what type of, aesthetically speaking, what type of music Falling in Reverse is. Now he can listen to it on record and he can get it and he can go, yeah, I like this. But them doing it live is a completely different story. So I think what we're seeing here is a generational thing, and it's to be expected. He picked the wrong guy to fuck with because Ronnie Radke's going to fire back until his fucking head explodes. Like he's not going to be nice about it.
Yeah.
If you talk shit on that guy, he's going to fire back. So.
And is that why he has kind of won you over, or are you just talking about that interview that he did backstage with?
No, I think that one interview really showed me something, and I don't know if I caught like the right day but I was really impressed with the way he handled a truly, truly shitty, not total interview, but interview on one person's behalf.
Yeah.
I kind of want us to pull that up because I know we talked about it before, but like for me, you know, when you're an artist, you get asked really dumb questions and you expect them and you go, oh, I'll just answer it. I'll be polite and I'll answer it and to the best of my ability. But then you get asked a dumb question with a really condescending tone behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what really irks you. And
Yeah.
I noticed it when he was asked this question. And dude, if it was me, if I was in that chair being asked that question by that person who I don't like, because I feel like he does it a lot. Fucking rock guy. He's a poser. So if I got asked a question by a poser in such a condescending sort of fucking cornball type of way, I would have reacted differently than Ronnie Racky did. But Ronnie Racky kept his cool and just kind of went with the flow. And I was totally shocked.
Dude,
Oh,
yes.
Ronnie, come on now, dude.
You are. You got true. I was telling my girlfriend, like, you have such a good vibe when we were doing interviews on Zoom.
Yeah, man.
Great vibe.
Well, thank
Always.
you, dude.
So
Well,
pause
I'm a
it.
fan of music, and I love support.
So this is what we're talking about. So Ronnie Racky gets interviewed at incarceration. Happened recently. The dude there with the gray hair, one of my least favorite people in rock and roll, just gives him a compliment. Okay. Just basically calls him a good dude. What this guy says after that is so incredibly patronizing and condescending and sarcastic and just overall just goofball. Like, it's like, what are you even saying, dude? Play it. It's mind blowing. I wouldn't have, but you can watch Ronnie Racky's face when this happens. Go ahead.
Supporting bands that are kicking ass and doing cool shit. And I love it that you guys are representing a heavy side of things, but also bringing a different fan base to the music. And
Wow,
you know, they get into falling in reverse. And then next thing they know, they're slaughtering animals listening to the fucking Slayer. You know what I'm saying? So I see the projection as that. I see you guys as a gateway to our music, and that's a beautiful thing that you are.
Never thought
Fuck
about it like that.
is he talking about?
You guys are totally a fucking gateway drug. I mean, there's a lot of people that are getting into your music for years since they were little kids, and they grow up to get into heavier shit.
Yeah.
And maybe even being bands
Ronnie
themselves.
Racky's like, yeah, just stop talking, please.
Falling in reverse is that premier band that's helping to do that.
So I did
Oh my God.
Tape to Fate
Like,
and Situation.
I when I first saw that, it made me laugh and cringe so hard because I've been in that situation, not on the high level that this interview is, but you just go, yeah, totally. Yeah. That's all you can say. That's all you can say. But I've never had someone say anything as idiotic as that to me. You're the gateway to people slaughtering animals and listening to Slayer. What the fuck are you even talking about, dude? What a brain dead.
When was the last time you slaughtered something while you were listening to Slayer?
Oh, 5 minutes before we started our show. Fucking idiot. That situation right there, the way that Ronnie Racky handled that, because you could tell he's like, what the fuck? You could see it in their reactions. Like, yeah, dude, totally. Like, yeah, people don't take us seriously, but once they go slaughter their animals, they realize, hey, that band was kind of cool. The fuck are you even saying? So the fact that he handled that way.
Do you agree with the rest of what he's saying is like they're a gateway to that?
No,
like
not at all.
Because I mean, essentially he's trying to say that they're a gateway to the harder scene, right? Or the harder music, but
there's a better way of saying that.
Yeah, I don't hear that though.
You basically say you fit in, but you guys have a different sound. That's it. And even that is kind of insulting. It's like, no, you guys are a part of this scene. There's just, if I were doing that interview, I would have thought of a better way to say that.
Yeah.
Not you're the gateway for fucking new fans to discover bands who are heavier than you. It was almost like he was saying there are bands that are better than you. And thank you for bringing these young, naive, dumb kids into the scene.
But he also kind of was like, you're in a group by yourself. It's like, you don't fit here. You also don't fit in like the heavier stuff. So you're just like in limbo in between the two.
They fit in fine everywhere. That guy's a poser. He doesn't know dick about fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck. God, that guy drives me fucking insane. Anyway. with the tracks, you're seeing a generational thing between he and Eddie Trunk. But I will tell you, I did find something interesting in doing my research as we were speaking of this. Sebastian Bach wants to fight Falling in Reverse frontman Ronnie Radke. Believe me, it will not go well for you, says Sebastian Bach.
Are we talking like a back alley fight, or are we talking like I want to fight him in public?
Last week, Falling in Reverse singer Ronnie Radke shared a video revealing he was canceling a festival appearance because the laptop and the backup laptop used for their shows had gone missing and later turned up in another state. Calling me and Eddie Trunk idiots? Now I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. Believe me, it won't go well for you, fuckface. Bach later tweeted, watch what happens when track bands call real musicians idiots, to which Radke responded, at practically every band I know. Bach tweeted, it's always so much fun to show someone what the world was like before the internet existed. Get fucking ready. He also said, virtual reality is so much fun until you have to deal with actual reality in your face. Radke said, at the same time, you have an entire generation that once admired you until your dumbass disrespected all of them. We get it. You don't like bands that use backing tracks, but it's okay for you to walk out to fake audience cheer. The fuck out of here. Bach responded, can't wait to meet you in person. Name the time and place, and I will introduce you to rock and roll in person, man. This conversation has gotten heated, and it's also been oversimplified.
Wow.
See that generational gap?
Yes, laptops are extremely common.
Whoa, what happened to Sebastian?
Holy
For a
cow.
number of different reasons. The sentiment here seems to
Why
be
do I feel like
if
that
you
does not
use a
sound good?
laptop, you must be lip syncing on stage and faking your instruments. You might have noticed when a band walks out on stage, there's some sort of music going or special effects that is coming through a laptop. Some of the biggest rock and metal bands of all time feature members on stage with a laptop, and countless bands that have incorporated hip hop elements into their music need to run those samples through a laptop. If a band has an orchestra in their music, it's highly unlikely they're going to have the budget to bring an orchestra with them. So they compromise and play those tracks through a laptop. This is obviously a very contentious issue that seems to be between two different generations in rock. The question is, though, what is the solution?
It's just a generational thing, dude. They're never, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a solution. I'll tell you a funny story. So maybe honestly, probably like 8 years ago, right around the time when I met my wife, I went to a wedding or something. I want to say a family member's wedding. And I run into a cousin of mine who was a musician. He used to be a musician, played out and stuff. And, way back in the day, he's much older than me. Coming from the family the size that I have way older cousins than I do, like significantly, like same age as my parents, close. It's kind of crazy. So anyway, he's not that old, but nonetheless. So I run into him and he's like, dude, you've been everywhere. Fucking what's going on now? Blah, blah, like catching him up and whatever, having the awkward conversation. And I was explaining something along the lines of like, one of the previous shows we had played where like our drummer's click track stopped working and we called an audible and we played something else, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, click track, what are you talking about? And I had to explain to him what a click track was and the fact that we used one live, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you mean to tell me your drummer can't play on time by himself? I was like, no, he can, but this just kind of keeps everything tighter. And he goes, man, back in my day, we didn't have that shit. And I go, I understand that. We sound better. we sound better. Trust me. I didn't say that, but
Has there
I was like, yeah.
has there ever been a good conversation where somebody says back in my day? Like
No.
that's how they start the conversation. There's never been.
It's usually insulting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you understand what progress is called, or like what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I think with Eddie Trunk and Sebastian Bach, well, Sebastian Bach got involved it's kind of silly, but that's kind of the duty. I like Sebastian. I am a Sebastian Bach fan, but I think it's kind of silly that he got involved in general. But I guess his name got brought into it and he's going to take advantage of that. But with Eddie Trunk specifically,
did I miss that? How was his name brought into it? Was it by Trunk when he was talking about?
It was by one of them. Yeah, I can't. In that video you just played, it explains it, but it doesn't matter.
Okay.
But with Trunk specifically, I mean, he's not a musician. So like anytime you have a non-musician speaking out on this stuff, regardless of their occupation, whether they're a writer, historian, critic, radio host, TV personality, it's like, hey, stay in your fucking lane. Like but that's not the way it works. And Ronnie Radke should know that. Like people are going to say what they want to say. So, but Ronnie Radke's not apologetic as far as like, hey, I'm not going to shut up. Like,
I wonder if any other bands use this whole situation as an example, though. Like for them to look at their own bands, like especially bands that use a lot of tracks, and be like, listen, we don't want to be in a situation where we have to cancel shows because of something like this happening. So, at least have, like you said, you were surprised they didn't have a backup plan. You would think at least
that video just stated that they had a laptop and a backup laptop. But my thing is like,
but I don't mean
what are you
backup
relying
plan
on?
I don't mean backup plan as far as if our laptop gets stolen, we have another laptop for the tracks. I mean like a backup
No,
as
I know.
far as if we can't do tracks at all, we still need to be able to play.
Yeah, but they can still do tracks though. That's the thing. Like there are ways around it. Many ways.
But if all your stuff, I mean, I guess for like saved to, I don't know. I can't talk because I don't really know how tracks work.
Well, to be
Not a
honest with you,
musician.
no, I mean, I'm with you. To be honest with you, I haven't necessarily done it to a level like that. Like some people we know who have recently switched to it, where everything is run through a central database, if you will. I've never done it like that necessarily. We've had tracks, but they've run through the drummer and we've relied on him to make sure that they happen correctly. It was funny to see. I think based on the two people who it was funny to see the back and forth. I side with Ronnie Radke. It's like, hey man, like, as you know, like you said, we've talked about tracks a lot. My only problem is when people start using them for main vocals. That's when I have a problem. Rock bands, that's when I have a problem.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I think I agree with that.
It's
Like,
weird, right?
You use it as help. Don't use it as everything.
Well, it shouldn't even be help. It should be complementary.
Okay. Yeah, that'll work.
Now, some people use them for help, for sure, but it should be
Yeah.
complementary. It should be well, I'll be honest with you, man. Like, I'm about to put out a song tomorrow. Vocally speaking, there are a lot of vocals. I'm one guy. That's it. So a lot of what you're hearing or you're going to hear is complementary. It's filling the song out. So if I ever play that song live, unless I find 5 guys who can all sing in unison, in perfect pitch and in key, it's likely there's going to be some tracks happening. But
Yeah.
they're filler. They're complementary. They're there to support what the song is,
Right.
We don't have our laptop. I haven't even thought about it logistically speaking either, because I've never been there. I've never solely relied on that. So it's like, but I understand what they mean when they say, yeah, it's kind of sucks we don't have this. So we're not going to, I think ultimately too, what it does is they have total control of that. Meaning the sound guy doesn't have control of that central sound database that they have there. So they all kind of loop through one thing. They're all on the same click track. They're all on the same channel, Whereas if you give it to a sound guy, you have separate channels to go through. You have to rely on the sound guy to make sure you hear this, you hear that. Where if you have it all into this central thing, there's never a moment where you don't hear anything, where where you're lost, if you will.
Right.
We talked to our boys in Inimical about that, because I know they just recently started doing that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought we talked to, I want to say that maybe the last time we had Joel on the show, he didn't talk about that. Maybe it was outside of the show, and that's not something that they say necessarily, but it's
right.
but most bands do it now, just the way it is.
Yeah.
So
I just said it's a new generation of music.
it's not a new generation of music. It's a new generation of live music.
Okay.
Because believe me, when I saw Greta Van Fleet, who by all standards are a classic rock band, revival type band, nothing was real.
Oh, really?
That's all I did. My wife was so mad at me because the entire time I was just like, that's not real. That's not real. She's like, will you just shut up and pay attention? Like, can you just not? And I was like, I'm sorry. This is just a way that, like, yeah, the lead singer,
Where'd you see him at?
the pageant,
Okay.
and the tickets were not cheap. Fucking insane how expensive it was. I didn't buy them. My father-in-law bought them because he wanted to go see him. He heard him on the radio. He's like, oh, I like that band. Kind of reminds me of Zeppelin. We should go. We're like, yeah, let's go. And then he told me afterwards what they cost. I was like, oh my God. They're like $150.
A piece? Holy crap.
Ticket.
Jeez.
Fuck that. And so the whole time I'm like, yeah, that's, the lead singer was not singing at times. High notes. He was doing this whole number, bringing the mic way out here and fucking really emoting. And it's like, no, you're not doing that.
Yeah.
You're not hitting that note. Guitar player, I want to say, was faking guitar solos.
Oh, geez. How hard is that to do? Is
My
that pretty
conspiracy. My conspiracy.
Is
That's
that
all.
easy to do?
Yeah, just play the solo. But if you fuck up, you fuck up. No one notices. How are they going to know? How are we going to know?
So I guess the sound from the tracks just overpowers anything that would be coming out of your guitar.
Turn off his fucking guitar, dude. Turn it down. Mute that bitch. Let the track play. Let him pantomime. I hated it. I hated it. It's one of my least favorite live shows I've ever been to.
So they didn't even put on a good show in general
I
either?
did not like it at all.
Huh.
I did not. I mean, I had a good time because that was a live show, but yeah, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
So, whatever.
We got to choose a live show to go to together soon somewhere.
I Prevail, Pierce the Veil, Fit for a King, Stand Atlantic. That would be a good show.
That's all one show? Dang.
Yeah. November 9th. It's a Wednesday. God. Remember when you could go to a show on a Wednesday and I was like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. But now you're like, God damn it, a weekday? That sucks. Because I want to get fucked up, but not too fucked up. That I Prevail show would be fun.
Yeah.
I like Fit for a King a lot.
I'm not 100% sure I know, like off the top of my head. Give me something that Fit for a King sings.
Look up the song Death Grip right now. There it is.
The end is calling. The end is here. You're in a death grip. You're in a death grip. Death will know my name. You're at the world's end. You're at the world's end. I will be the last one standing. I can see the
Dang. They have a Parkway Drive feel to them a little bit.
Cool band. Very cool band.
Yeah.
They have a lot of good songs.
Where did the trend come from of bands playing in a field?
It's not a trend. It's an overdone thing at this point.
I guess just because it looks cool. That's why people do it.
It's a metalcore thing, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Before that, it was the wet, like concrete, sort of like industrialized area.
Like what Bullet for My Valentine did with
yeah.
Everything I Hate Revolves Around Me.
I mean, I don't remember that video, but yeah.
Okay. It was
there are a couple of trends. It's like the field, the wet ground and the industrial, like, broken brick and then there's, what's the other one? Well, now the other one's like bright lights behind you, and that's really it.
Okay.
I'll refer. You know what I'm saying. So I don't know.
Let's go back and get some action, live it up and get